All right, welcome to Tico-ish. I'm Krista Jimenez, the owner of Pura Vida Moms, and I'm here with Ryan Sitzman, blogger extraordinaire. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Great. Sounds like it's raining there, maybe?
Yeah, it's raining a lot. Yeah, kind of pouring.
We just finished a weekend of record high, triple digit temperatures, so now we're down to 85. So it's nice and cool
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. It's, it's like the South Pole, as they would say in Costa Rica.
Yes, exactly. Um,
Yes.
Sweet. So we're going to talk today about getting and giving directions when you're trying to get around in Costa Rica. This could be walking. This could be giving directions to the taxi driver. It could be driving and trying to find something, mailing letters to a specific address. So you want to give us an overview about how this works in Costa Rica?
Yeah, yeah. How it works or how it doesn't work, I
That's
think
what I
is
was
probably.
just thinking.
Yeah, yeah. When we were talking about this, when we were planning the topic, I thought, but we talked about that last week, but obviously we didn't. But I get the same sort of feeling with shopping, with directions. It's similar, but it's also like similar enough that you can kind of recognize what's going on, but it's completely different in other ways that just makes it pretty frustrating. Like, obviously there's streets, and people don't live in the jungle or in trees or anything like that. But the like there's no street names that are really of any use. Maybe in like San Jose, the capital, you might find a couple of street names, but still it's like, and that's almost about the only one that people, maybe Second Avenue, I guess. But then, yeah, so there's no street names, there's no house numbers. So everything is based on, it's basically a block, but they would just say 100 meters is a block. So, your address could be, they'll base it on a landmark then. So, 50 meters south and 100 meters east of the church, for example. And that's kind of an address.
Yeah. And actually, I will say that most all of the towns that I've ever been to are set up on a grid. So you've got the church north, and then everything's built out around that. And a lot of the landmarks will be schools or churches or something like that. It gets a little hairy, though, when the landmark is something that's no longer there.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Our sorry, go ahead.
Well, so you might ask for directions, and they might say where the bread shop used to be.
Yeah,
And if you're
exactly.
new to town, you go, I don't know where the bread shop used to be.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
will also say this, though, that the street, technically, if you go on Google, all of the streets, at least that I've seen, do have names, but there's no signs and no one knows what they are. So
Right.
if you did show up and say, hey, I want to go to, the third store on the left on 7th Avenue, people would look at you like, 7th Avenue? We don't have that here. Even though technically they do. No
Yeah.
one knows it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty frustrating. Even like you're talking about things that used to be there. The address for our house. I think one of there's no official address, but I think the one that the bank has on file is like 100 south, which we're in the mountains, so like there's completely curvy roads. So how do you know which way south, really? But I think it's 150 meters south of the old soccer field. But the soccer field, I guess, washed away like 15 years ago in a landslide. So it's like it doesn't even exist anymore. And now it's like the intersection of one road and another road, and then you have to say like yellow house with solar panel, for example. It's you pretty much have to describe the house if it's a house, or if it's a business, you have to say like next to some other business, or maybe the person would know the other business, but it's pretty confusing.
Well, and it also is fairly relative, right? So I'll ask people for directions. I'll say like, hey, and it's not just us, right? Because when my husband Ricardo and I go, sometimes our friends from high school or college have maybe moved somewhere and they want us to come over for coffee. So they say, hey, come over to our house. So usually the conversation will be like, okay, where do you live? And it'll be like a very long roundabout thing about sort of where they live. And then you'll say, okay, well, how do I get there? And then it starts with, well, do you know where XYZ is?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, do you know where this is? Yes. Okay. Well, it's not by that.
Yeah.
But
Pretty much.
since you know where that is, I'm going to re-explain to you where the other thing that you didn't know where it was. And so sometimes we'll go and like, and you're right, by the time you get the directions, like, okay, you go 50 meters from here, you turn right, you go 50 meters to here. And then just ask somebody for, old man
Yeah.
Juan, and they'll tell you that you're close, and then they describe the house. But it's insanely convoluted way of getting somewhere.
Yeah, it's you're talking about asking directions. Once I asked my students, it was the first time we were going to the Caribbean, to Limon, and I said, so when I get to San Jose, how do I get like on the road that takes me to Limon? And they said, well, go to the church in San Jose and then follow the cars. And it's like, follow the cars. That's exceedingly like the worst directions I think I've ever gotten.
Besides the fact there's like 35 churches in San Jose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's probably 3,500 or 35,000 cars, like right around that area. So yeah, I'm not sure which cars I was supposed to follow, but in the end, I found some kind of map online. But that was before a lot of the GPS stuff was going on, especially here in Costa Rica. So we got there eventually, but every time I've tried to go to the Caribbean, I've always gotten turned around for like 15 or 20 minutes in San Jose.
Well, yeah, and there's a really nice shortcut around, like between Heredia and San Jose, and you can kind of zoom through to get to the Caribbean. But if you miss the turn, you're in for like 45 minutes of traffic. And yeah, I've tried to do that before. Well, I have a couple stories about getting directions from somewhere and trying to go to that place. The first one is my first year working in Santa Ramon. I was trying to get my work visa, and I was there for an entire year, and I got my visa 6 weeks before the school year ended.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to San Jose all the time trying to get this visa, and at a certain point I had to go to a lawyer to sign something and then take that paper to San Jose. And so they said, we can't take you, but if you can just take the bus to Naranjo, and it's really easy to get to the lawyer's office and just pick it up and go. And at that point I was just like, fine, whatever, I will pick it up. I just want to get my visa. So I get on the bus and I go to Naranjo and I get off, and you're supposed to go, like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was 400 meters. And then when you get there, you're going to go down another 200 meters and it's the house on the corner. Easy. So I walk the 400 meters and I get to this spot, and there are I'm like at the top of a hill, and there are 3 roads on each direction going down, and not just like sort of sloping down. It was going like straight down. So I kind of look around a little bit, and I double check my notes, right? Like bajando. Okay. And so I took the first path and got to the end, and it wasn't the house they described. So I came back up to the top, went to the next one. It wasn't the house they described, came back up to the top. But like, I still don't know exactly what bajando means, because people even say bajando when, like in San Ramon, where everything's totally flat. So do you know, have you figured out in all your time there what bajando actually means? Does it mean going south? Does it mean going away? Like, what's bajando?
Oh man, I don't know. And I live in the mountains, so I should probably understand that. But I guess here there's kind of like one road. So like, if you're on the road, then it'll just naturally go up or down, and you kind of have to follow it. But I've never been in a situation like that. But that sounds kind of like Costa Rican directions. It's sort of the Lux method. Like, you try one, then you try the other, then the third one's just right. So.
Well, and actually that reminded me of another story that I wasn't planning to tell, but we have some dear friends here in Colorado. He's from Nebraska. She's from Costa Rica. We've known them for about 10 years. And when they first invited us over to their house, my husband got on the phone with Anna, the Tica, and they were getting directions on how to get to their house. She never gave us their street address. Oh, wow. And so Ricardo listened, and he talked and everything. And the same thing, we drove in and we got to the intersection we were supposed to go, and there were 3 directions to go. And I can't remember what term she used. But like we drove one way and it was going to be another miles, right? So like turned right, drove a mile. Nope, that's not it. Went straight, drove a mile. Nope, that's not it. Third one, yep, got there. And when we got there, they said, well, how come you're so late? And we said, well, we didn't know which way to go. And that was the point where Bob and I realized that like if we're going to be giving directions in the United States, he and I need to get on the phone and talk about this because
yeah, for sure.
They're like 2100 Santa Fe. That's the easiest place to go, but that wasn't the way the Ticos related to each other.
Yeah, it's, I guess, when in Costa Rica, it was the Costa Ricans.
Hey, dude, we were in Colorado.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true. When Costa Rican, the Costa Rican, I guess then.
But yeah, and I think it kind of goes to maybe a larger cultural issue that time is really relative. So in the United States, at least, we're always like trying to get things done and be on a schedule and go on time. And in Costa Rica, time is really relative. Like, hay más tiempo que vida is what Ricardo's always saying to me. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know I'll be dead before the end of time, but while I'm on this earth, I'd like to get some things done.
Yeah, let's take advantage of
it. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I guess that like before we started talking, you said we should try to find something positive to say about it, and maybe that's kind of the positive tinge to it. It's it's more of just a different approach towards life in general, not just being like obstinate and not like wanting to put in like street names or house numbers or something. And I guess the same thing I said last week. It does force you to learn some Spanish if you have to talk to people and get directions for everything. But that's for me, that's kind of one of the few advantages to driving and getting directions or getting anywhere in this country. But it's an adventure at the same time. So
it totally is. And I remember it's been several years, but we decided to go to Rio Celeste up north with some friends. And all I said, when we used to travel there, we have some dear friends that every time we'd show up, they'd say, all right, Krista, what do you want to do? Because I'm the one always researching, like, what do you do in Costa Rica? What's the cool thing? What's the new thing? So I said, well, I want to go to Rio Celeste. Perfect. We pack up, we head. We stop at Arenal for a night and we're just kind of like hanging around. And all of a sudden, of course, we're trying to get to Rio Celeste and it's like, I don't know, 7:30 at night. It's dark. And for some reason, I don't know how it works. I still don't know how it works, but I think you can go to Rio Celeste and there's like maybe a town or a resort or something that you can stay at and then you can hike around and there's waterfalls. That is not where our Tico direction sent us. They sent us to like, it was just literally a path and a dude. And it was great. Like it was free to go and we hiked the next morning and like it included, I don't know, we paid $5 and it had a tour, a horse and lunch or something. But we're driving through like these tiny, tiny, tiny areas of Costa Rica that there's no church, there's nothing. So they'll be like, donde el palo de mango, 100 metros. And we're like, where the hell is the mango tree? Like, and so I remember them saying, es donde Pedro. Just keep going and just ask people, es donde Pedro? So we'd go like, a mile or two and then we'd stop and roll down the window. Hey, donde está donde Pedro? Oh yeah, just keep going. Just keep going. And we did that for like 2.5 hours and we got to a really cool place. But when we got there, we're like, oh, this is donde Pedro. And we're like, where's Pedro? Like we've been talking about Pedro. We've been looking for Pedro for hours. And they're like, oh, he died like 50 years ago.
Oh,
it's
nice.
like, how do all these people know about Pedro when he's not, he's been dead for 50 years.
Yeah. Wow. That's totally Costa Rican. And it involved a mango tree.
Oh yeah. Donde el palo de mango. Like what?
Nice.
So yeah, so getting and giving directions. I will say though, if you're considering visiting Costa Rica and you're going, well, should I take a bus? Should I drive? Should I hire a driver? Costa Ricans do use GPS now, and they also use Waze, which is an app a lot. And it's like a crowdsourced app. So you will get on there and you can say, okay, I'm going from this point to this point. And everyone else that's going from point A to point B will be on there explaining like, hey, there's a wreck here, or you should avoid this, or here's a detour. And so that sense of community works really well for the app, where here in the States, when I get on Waze, no one's using it. So it doesn't really help me to avoid traffic jams or whatever. So if you're headed to Costa Rica and you're thinking about driving, Waze is really great. And then the GPS that they have now is phenomenal. I don't know if you use it, but
I don't actually.
it's got every back road and shortcut and it's phenomenal.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I tried using Google Maps once, like with the offline version, but it got us to where we needed to go, but it took us kind of way out of the way. And we actually drove past
Sounds
where we
like
had
here.
to go. Yeah, yeah, but we drove past where we had to go, like, and then had to go like an extra 5 or 10 minutes on the highway, then turn back and go exactly back on the same highway. But yeah, it was a bit frustrating. But yeah, I guess the other tip I'd say for people that are visiting is, if you rent a car then and you don't have like a cell phone plan or whatever, usually they'll have GPSs available at the rental place. Or if you don't like that, or you don't really know how to use that, like I found that if we're driving to like a pretty touristic place, if you just find like a hotel in that area, then there's usually signs for the hotel, even if there's not signs for the actual city. So yeah, that'll kind of get you to the general area. Then you can ask for directions when you're closer.
Yeah, and actually my parents, one of the first times they visited Costa Rica, and they didn't speak a word of Spanish. Well, they could say cerveza, por favor, so 3 words. But it was a rainstorm in the middle of the night, and they had to go to this tiny hotel outside of San Ramon on these back roads. And my host father explained how to get there and a couple of the significant landmarks, and then they had the name of the hotel printed on a piece of paper. And they got in the car. It was night. It was pouring rain. And they started to go the way. And then every so often they'd just stop and show someone the paper. And they would either like put their thumb up and say, see, or they'd say no and go back. And they'd go back and then they'd ask again. And they made it. And they had a blast. So if you have some extra time and you want a cultural experience, like there are always people out and about. There are always people on the road, on the street. Most people know where to go. And if they don't, they'll say, no say. I've never had someone fake explain to me where it is. You know what I mean? Like, have you?
Yeah. Not I think not to save face or anything, but maybe like they were just a bit confused once. But I think they actually thought that they were giving me right directions, but it's not that they just like, oh, I got to tell this guy something. So yeah, once or twice they've gotten turned around from some directions, but yeah, you live and you learn.
Yeah, you live and you learn, just like Alanis Morissette said back in the 90s.
Yes, I guess. She said a lot of things.
Yes, she did. Isn't that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
That was a bad 90s joke. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for this episode. And
yeah,
we'll be back next week again with an undetermined topic, but I'm sure it'll be fun and informative. And I hope that you can wear another, what do you have, a skull t-shirt on there? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's one of the, what do they call it? The sugar skulls or whatever.
Calaveras. Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Yeah. And it says, I'm your father. It's pretty awesome.
Yo soy tu padre. Where the heck did you get that?
Target. There's a lot of good Star Wars shirts. Yeah.
Well, sweet. Well, thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks. Take care, you too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.